Hello and welcome to this EasyFox tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to write a request to get all the users from our server. In the previous video, we have successfully set up the router for our client. So now if I input my username and password, it successfully moved to the message view. Okay, let's open the client code. And in the app.js, now I don't want to use the container anymore. I want it to be full width and full. And I'll create a really basic layout for the message view. Okay, let's return a div. And I will give it a class name of W100, meaning full width and full height. And here I'll give another div with class name of dflex, which means it's a flex box, and I want it to be full height as well. In this flex box, I have two sections. The first one is the user list, and the second one is the chat section. So in the chat section, I'll be displaying the chat logs, the input and the send button. However, for now I'll display the hello text only. And in the user list, I'll give it a title with users, and I want to display a list of users. Maybe user 1 and then user 2. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Okay, I have the left column here is the user list, and the right whole section here is the chat section. And I want to create a style.css here, and I'll define the CSS for my user list. I'll give it a flex of 2, and for the chat section, I'll give it flex of 6, and I have to import it. All right, let's see how it looks like. Okay, now my user list is a little bit bigger. Okay, for the user list, I also want to grab it in another div. I'll give it some more properties. I want it to be a flex box as well, and it should be a flex column, and I want it to be full height, and I want its item to be center. Let's see how it looks. Yes, it's now center. The user list is now in the center. All right. So now let's set up a socket request so that we can send requests to our server. I want to create a socket request.js in my socket package. And it is a singleton class. Okay. And I'll begin with a singleton template like this: static instant equal to now. And I'll define a static get instant function. And if socket request.instant if this one is null, I'll create an instance for it, and I'll return this instance. And I also want to export default socket request. And in this socket, I want to get client. I want to have a get client function. And because we have already did this in the socket proxy, it's just import easy from the SDK and then call easy.clients.getInstant, because the client's manager is a singleton class. And now I can return clients.getDefaultClients. And I also want the getApp function. It will give me the current application that I have access to. So let's client equal to this dot get client. Let app manager equal to client dot get app manager, and I'll return app manager dot get app. All right, jump to my server. Okay, so first of all, I want to create a controller class to handle my request from client. So let's open the app.controller package, and I'll create chat request controller, and I'll give it the annotation easy request controller. You will see it's really easy. It's really simple to handle a request from client in easy platform. So for example, my client want to get all the users, so I'll listen to that request by defining a void function, get all users, and that request comes from a easy user, and I'll give it a annotation easy to handle. So and I need to specify a command here. I'll give this command dot get all user, and I need to define a new command here, create a constant field. Okay, I'll give this string of number 1. All right, so now if my client send a get all users request, it will jump right into this function. So I'll show you in a second. So I want to lock something here, but to access to my logger, my class need to extend the easy loggable. Really simple. And for example, I receive get all user request. All right, let's restart my server. Great. And I'll use the socket range to test my server. Okay, let's connect to this URL. And then, first of all, I want to send a login request, which is 20, given the zone name, username, and then password, and then additional data. Okay, I have successfully logged in, and now I want to send an app access request, which is 30 with the app with the zone name, and then with no additional data. Yeah, I've successfully accessed to the chat tutorial app, and now I can send a 31 means the app request. So that means the client send a request to an app in our server. So I'll give it, so there is the first app with the ID 1, and then I need to define the command, which is 1. 1 means the one string here means get all users command, and then I don't want to send any data. Okay, let's copy this one, and then because this client is disconnected from our server, so I'll create a new client. Need to log in again, and then send an app access request, and then send get all user request. You can see in the server here, we receive get all users request. It means I have successfully listened to that commands. Alright, so now to get all the users, I need to use the chat user service that we have created before. I'll call it user service, and of course I need an easy order byte annotation. And so to get all users, I'll create a list of chat user. I need to import the list java.onto util, and then I'll call it all users equal to user service dot get all users. Okay, now I'll create that function in the chat user service. Right, and I also need to modify I also need to modify the implementation of this interface. It will be service.import chat user service. You can see the ID automatically generate the error for us. Okay, so now we could call user repo chat user repo.file. Okay, it's just that simple. And now I have already obtained all the users, but note that these users contains its own password. I don't want to send the user password back to my client, so I'll define another. Okay, I'll create a just contact data. I'll create a package first. It will be app.data, and then inside this one, so the user without password, I'll call it chat contact, and in the chat contact I'll give is a long ID and string username, and it should be easy object binding. So we want this one so that we can send it back to our client. All right, so let's create a list of chat contact, and new array list, and then I'll loop through all the chat user. Okay, I'll call this one client, and I'll loop through all the user in all users variable, and within a user I'll create a new chat contact. C equal to new chat contact. Okay, I also want this class to have all arguments constructor, and then also I want getter, setter, and toString. So I'll give it a data annotation, and with the chat contact I'll give it user.id get id, and then user.get username, and then I'll add this one to my array list. Then I want to send back these contacts to my client, so I need a easy response factory. It's auto byte. Okay, so to send it back to my client, I'll call response factory dot new array response. With the command, I'll send it back with the get all user commands as well, and with the data of contact, I send it back to the client, so it will be user client, and I'll call execute. Okay, so let's restart my server. Alright, I'll test this with the socket grant first. Create a new connection, send the login request, send the app access request, and then send the get all user request. You see here, it returned back all the clients, all the users in my database. Okay, let's try another one. Now I want to log in with another user, test1 for example. Send, and I also want to get access to the chat tutorial application, and then send get all users request. You see now we have 2 users in our database. Alright, I think it works for the server right now. Let's jump back to my client code. And now in the socket request class, I want to define get all user request. In this function, I'll call this .get app .send request, and this has 2 arguments. One is the command, another one is data. And since this request, I don't need to send any data to my server, so I leave it as empty objects. And with the command, I'll define a new JS file called socket constants.js. Inside this one, I'll export constant app command. With my first command is get all users. It will be string of number 1, which is exactly similar to this get all users in my server. Okay, let's go back to the client code. And I'm gonna open the socket request again, and now my command now is the app command dot get all users. And don't forget to import the app command from the socket constants. Alright, and now so I'll call this, I'll send it request when all the UI here has been loaded. So I'll go in component did mount, and since my socket request is a singleton class, so I can go socket request dot get instant and then get all users request. All right, and to listen to the response from our server, I also have to make change to the socket proxy. Okay, so I need a setup app, which is equal to setup dot setup app, and my app name is chat tutorial. Okay, and I need to add a data handler or a listener to our setup app. So setup app dot add data handler, and I'll listen to the app command that get all users. I need to import this one, and it will return an app and data. All right, so from here I'll only log receive get all user response from server, and I also want to see how the data looks like. Log the data. Okay, so now let's test with my browser login. All right, please focus on the console right here. You can see receive get all user response from server. So before that, we send the command app request with the data 1 empty object to our server, and then receive back an app request command. Okay, and now I receive all the users from my server. And now how to pass all these users to my list. Okay, it's not very difficult. So let's go back to my message view. Okay, to do that, I want to add one more MVC controller. MVC.new controller chat. And then in the message view, in its constructor, I'll initialize this chat controller as the MVC dot. Okay, let's create a MVC first, equal to MVC dot get instance. This MVC is from this one. Now it should be import MVC from ES ES6. No, MVC ES6. And this is a singletons as well. Okay. And in the component dismount function, I want to add an action for this controller. Add default view with the action name add all user and with the arguments of all user. Okay, so it will be easy. Just call this that add all users, all user, and I define another function add all users, all users. So in this function, I only need to call this dash state all users. Okay, and I might want this one is MVC actually, and I want to call this dash state equal to. So I want to initialize the values for all users as empty array. Alright, and now I want to log so that I can know that this function has been called successfully. Add all users and then plus all users. Alright, maybe I should make it like this. All users. Alright, let's go back to my socket proxy. From here, I only need to define a just controller, which is equal to the MVC.get controller chat, and I only need to call chat controller dot update views, and I go to add all users as we have defined previously, and I pass in the data. Alright, let's remove this console log and test my application. Go back to my login page. Login test 4. Okay. There is a bug here. Get instant is not a function. In the message view line 15. Message view line 15 here. Get instant is not a function. Oh, this not get instance. This should be MVC.get controller chat. Sorry about that. Okay, let's test this again. Login. Test. Right. Console is not a function. Alright. I see this should be console.log. Okay. And let's see the log here. It successfully jumped to my add user function. And then my all users state is now test and test1. That works. it works. So let's remove these logs. And now I want to apply this state, the old user state, to my list. That would be very simple. So let's remove this list item and define it as old use. Okay, let's get the old user state from this dot state, and I can call old user dot map to the user and the index. I can return a div, for example. Within this div, I'll give it user.username, and this div should have a key value of I. This looks pretty ugly, so I'll clean it a little bit. I don't need to use the bracket here. Okay, hopefully it looks better now. Within a user and index, or just return a div with the username inside. Okay, let's go back to login test. Alright, it successfully displayed all the user in my database, which is test and test1. Right. Okay, now I want my list item to be more beautiful. So I'll create another component, which is user list view .jsx, and it is a class component. Class. Okay, I want to export default user list view. Alright, inside this one, render, and I'll return UL with the class name of nav and flex column. This should, I have to import the React, and this class extends the React component. And this inside this tag. Okay, I want to pass in the user and chat target equal to this dot props. Okay, if I have the user here, I can use user dot map, and within this for each item, I'll go user and index. I'll return a user item here, but I have not created this one yet, so I'll create another component, which is user item. Extend React components as well. And this also has a render function. Alright, in this user item, I want to pass in the user, which is the user item, and also its key will be the index I. And I also want another prop, which is the active, which is equal to user dot id equal to the chat target. All right. So when I click on a user item, that item will become active, and all other items are not active. Okay. So inside this render function, I want to extract the user and active from this dot props. And inside the div, I want to return a button with the type of button and the class name of I want to define a active class equal to whether is this active or not. I return the active string, otherwise I'll return a null string. And the class name should be user button link. The button and button link are class names of Bootstrap. User button is my own class name. And I also want to plus concat this string with the active class. Okay, inside this button, I want to have a user dot username tags. Right, and I also want an on-click property for this button. I'll define an on-click function here, which is an arrow function. I don't need the event here. And I also want to extract the user from this dot props. And I want to change the chat target to the current user. So to do that, let's go back to my message view. I want to add another default view for my chat controller with the name of change target user, and with the target here. I'll call to the update target user function and pass in the target. I'll define that function here. Update target user target. This dot set state. I'll call target user as target. And of course, I need to give this a default value. So the target user now is now at the beginning. Okay. And when I call controller updates the change target user view, the target user state will have new values. Okay. Let's go back to my user list view. When I click on an item, I'll call, let's give it a constructor. And inside this one, I want to call this the chat controller equal to the MVC dot get instant dot get controller chat. And from here, I want to call this dot chat controller dot update views, change target user, and I'll give it the user.id. Okay, so when I click on an item, the target user state in the message view will change. All right. Okay, and now I want to define the user button active CSS. Okay, I'll give it dot user button first. I'll give font weight of 500, color 333, and then padding 2px. And for my active user button, I'll change the color to 007 BFF. Okay, so the button is black as default, and when it is active, the text changes to blue color. All right, let's go back to my user list view. Okay, if the user.id equal to the chat target, it will be active. Okay, I think my user list view is ready to be used. Let's go back to my message view, and I can replay this section as user list view, and I need to give it user properties as all user, and the chat target as okay. I'll extract the target user from my state and then pass this to my chat target as target user. All right, let's test my client now. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, the default button is black, and when I click on a button, it becomes active. Okay, let's try another user. Test 2. Okay. So the idea is when I click to a user, I can chat with that user. Okay, so in this video, I have successfully pulled all the users from my database displays in my chat client. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.